Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell. All rise.
Oh, very funny. And I'm Megan.
Okay.
You pain in the ass.
I had to do it because one day I thought about it when I was in the shower and was like, that will be hysterical.
You think
I've
about
got
me
to
in
do
the
that.
shower?
I did. Absolutely. I do. I think a lot about the podcast while I'm like doing mundane things, right? So, but then I'm not even kidding you. This was like 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh, I got to remember to do that when we record. Well, I forgot. But then one of our Patreons, Katie, who's actually been on an episode before.
Yeah, I remember that one.
She randomly sent me a text that said, when you introduce yourself, will you please?
Yeah.
I was like,
Katie.
Oh my gosh, I put it like our thoughts really are connected. I said, girl, I've actually already thought about this, but keep forgetting to do it. Consider it done. So
yeah, and here we are.
you,
Just so you guys know, we did our intro and she's like, oh, that wasn't good. And I'm like, well, did I sound weird or something? So she started it over and did that to me.
Yep, that's because I had to.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
You may be seated. I'm going to shake the bones.
Oh, me too. I'm going to shape. I'm going to shake the sack.
You can shape it too in anything you want. There's a whole art of puppetry, I hear, when it comes to those.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't look it up.
We've learned a lot.
Don't look it up.
Okay. So this is a very disturbing case, but it does have a survivor.
I do like survival stories.
There is a victim and a survivor. This was a listener request. Don't have permission that I recall to use the name, so I'm sorry.
Thanks, anonymous listener.
Yeah, if you did give me permission and I didn't make note of the name in my notes, I apologize. I am human after all, working on becoming supernatural, but right now I'm just human. So
we're all ancient aliens if we go with conspiracy theories.
I know, and I love to gobble me up as much information as I possibly can. So maybe I am part alien, but this is the Bone Breaker case. Have you ever heard of the Bone Breaker?
I don't think I have.
I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, everyone. This is a dude that enjoyed the sound of bones breaking.
So he was a chiropractor.
You know, choices. We all have choices in life.
Yeah.
Could he have chosen differently? Absolutely.
He could have used his powers for good instead of evil, and he could have been a chiropractor instead of a murderer.
In a simultaneous another dimension, he is a chiropractor. Excellent. But in this one that we're living in, he decided to just be a violent murderer.
The Bone Breaker.
The Bone Breaker. It's going to shock you when you find out how old this fella is.
Oh, God. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so let's start.
I'm holding the raccoon bones. Don't worry, guys. I won't break you.
And I'm just holding a sack of boners.
Right. Don't break them either. I hear it's painful, and it's a true medical condition.
It really is. Yeah, so RIP to, all the erections out there that have been broken.
Right.
It really does sound painful. Lots of victims today.
Right.
So let's start actually with a 14-year-old boy named Chris Steiner. He is not the perpetrator. He was on July 4th. I'm taking you to 1994. July 4th, 1994 in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Is it Baraboo? Is it Baraboo?
It might be Baraboo.
Probably depending on where you live.
I would imagine. Wisconsin is similar to us Michiganders. They're right across the lake, across the pond. And we all have the small pond. That's called Lake Michigan, for those of you that don't know where it is. And they have lots of Native American names and such. Yeah. So I'm assuming perhaps that is one of them.
Yes. Well, here we are in Baraboo. Chris Steiner disappears from his home in the night. This is not like Chris. He's 14.
Right.
Okay. It is July 4th. Okay. So kind of a celebration. Not kind of. There is a celebration. Is the birth of America.
The independence of the United States.
That's right. So now that we've kind of set the stage a little bit, let me tell you a little bit about Chris. He was born November 19th, 1979 in Wisconsin. Now, him and his parents were very close. He had a normal American upbringing, which is another reason why we point to he didn't just wander off in the night, all right? He was very responsible. Actually, he was starting a new job the next day, July 5th, 1994. And he asked his parents he was really nervous that he wasn't going to remember to get up or wasn't going to be in the routine of getting up. So he made sure to tell his parents when he went to bed, don't forget to make sure that I'm awake.
It's before cell phone alarms, man.
Right.
You relied on your regular old alarm clock. And if you accidentally shut it off or threw it across the room, like I used to do at that age in 1994,
it was done.
You relied on your parents.
Yep, exactly. So when his parents go into his bedroom at 6:15 a.m., and discover that Chris is nowhere to be found, they immediately call the police because he's not the type of child that's just going to wander off, that's going to run away, that's going to, do any of that sort of thing. Chris's father told the police that he checked on his son the night before at 10 p.m. He was asleep in his bed, and unfortunately, this is the last time that anyone would have seen Chris alive, was when his dad checked on him in his bed.
Again, parents' worst nightmare.
Absolutely. Police start an investigation, and they discover inside the home that on the ground floor bedroom, which was where Chris's room was, the screen to his bedroom had been slashed, had been cut open. So this is intentional. This is somebody who, to me, this is what it tells me as an investigator, that this is someone who knew what room to go to, right? Slashed it.
You know what it also means to me is that he definitely didn't voluntarily leave, because when you're sneaking out of your house, you don't rip open your screen. You very carefully and quietly remove the entire screen so you can put it back.
Exactly.
If any of you have ever snuck out.
Right. I haven't, because I'm an angel. But I've heard that that's what people do.
I heard that also from friends of mine in high school who might have done that.
Right. Yes, but never you. I did find in some reports that this was also Chris's older brother's bedroom as well. I couldn't differentiate whether it was also, like, as I just said, as well, like, did they share a room, or was this just Chris's room?
Okay.
That information was conflicting, and I like to tell you when I read something different. So it's possible that Chris and his older brother shared this bedroom.
Do we think if they did share the room, was his brother in there, or was this
his brother was out for the night?
Okay, so at least we know the important piece, and that's that Chris was alone in the bedroom, whether it was shared or not.
Correct. Yep. There were muddy footprints that were found throughout the inside of the house, and on the second ground floor, the
second ground floor, also known as the second floor.
Why did I write it?
How many ground floors are there here? Is it a bi-level home?
Can I just tell you that sometimes every time that I write a report for work, I have to describe the floors and levels that the daycare are on. And that's how we describe them. And I just realized that's exactly how I wrote my notes.
Like a daycare investigation.
It was. So sorry about that. So yes, there were patio doors that were on another level. It is like a bi-level type home, to my understanding. So it's still like ground level. It's not upstairs.
But there's a set of stairs of some kind probably that led up to another landing.
Yes, like the landing. Mm-hmm. But those patio doors were unlocked. And mom and dad say, nope, we lock all the doors.
And there were muddy footprints headed
throughout the house.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Were they headed toward the door? Like, it appears. I couldn't
find that information. To the way that the investigation is written, it seemed to me that there is a hypothesis that a perpetrator entered through the screen and then exited with Chris through the patio doors.
And that makes perfect sense to me because, again, we're not allegedly kidnapping a young, small child here. It's going to be hard to carry a 14-year-old from a window. So he found a different way to exit with the child.
Yep.
Somehow immobilized.
Exactly. So at first, the police did want to say, listen, it was the 4th of July. Do you think that it's possible that he snuck out to maybe go see a girl? And he was close with his parents. And although, in the beginning, they really didn't think that, they kind of had to be pacified by the police and go with that hypothesis, right? Just until some hours pass. And finally, when Chris doesn't arrive back home that evening, they're no longer really thinking that this is possible. But the police are then switching to, well, we think he ran away. His parents wouldn't even once consider this theory. They're like, no, our son was happy. He was excited about his new job. There were no issues at home, at school. He was a good kid. There's no way.
He does not fit to wake him up.
Right.
Also, not indicative of a kid who's going to run away, who's like, stay far away from my room so I have a way to get out. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be discovered.
Does not even remotely fit the checklist for a runaway, right?
I'm right on there with mom and dad.
Yep. So mom and dad would not even entertain this. So days go on. That was July 5th. Okay. Unfortunately, a body is found in the Wisconsin River.
Wait, on the 5th. So this was July 4th?
July 10th. It was July 5th that he was discovered to not be in his bed.
Because it was the early morning hours. Early in the morning. And then so 5 days later.
5 days later,
on the 10th.
Body, on July 10th, a body is found in the Wisconsin River. The body had different parts of decomposition, mostly due to the water, of course. So dental records had to confirm that this was the body of Chris Steiner. So initially, Megan, police don't have a whole lot of clues of how Chris ends up in the Wisconsin River. An autopsy was done, and in the initial autopsy, it said that there was no significant injury. So his cause of death was listed as drowning.
Right.
But in terms of the drowning, like how did he drown? Why was he hanging? Because his body was described as kind of hanging like on a branch, whether it was snagged, we don't know. But he was face down in the river, but part of his body was out of the river, hanging over this like downed branch tree type.
Sure. And at the time, there's no evidence to show that he was injured or killed prior to being placed in the river.
Well, and what they did is they just listed his cause of death as drowning and the manner as undetermined.
Okay.
But the original autopsy says there's no significant injury to have caused his death. So that's why they went with that, with drowning, because he was
in the water,
and he was bloated and badly decomposed.
I understand. So, I think though, with evidence of a real drowning, there should be some type of evidence that water was taken into the lungs.
Yep. But that's the part that I think gets tricky when you add in the decomp,
the level of decomp and the bloat. Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough.
And I found this interesting piece of information from an article. And I apologize because it'll be in my show notes, but I can't remember exactly what article. I'm not quoting it, but still, they talked about how an aspect of a death investigation involves evaluating, the cause, the mechanism, the manner of death, those sorts of things. So a cause of death is whatever made death occur, like strangulation, as we know. And the mechanism is what happens physiologically. So like oxygen deprivation, right?
Yeah. Asphyxiation,
yep.
Drowning.
Yep. How we relate this with Chris is just to say that they're saying that he died because of drowning, but they don't know the cause of, like, what caused him to drown.
Right.
Where did someone hold him, under? Because of the fact of the decomposition. They don't have the information to warrant to say that there was any sort of significant injury. Okay.
And again, because he was decomposed so badly, they couldn't see if there were any ligature marks to indicate some type of strangulation. They would have been able to see potentially blunt force trauma though, because if there were, at least to the head, or if there were no bones were damaged that we're aware of.
Well, we're going to come back to Chris.
Okay. And I brought that up because you said this was the bone breaker.
Yes,
so, okay.
Exactly. So we're going to come back to this, but this is the first set of what happens. And this is where the world is kind of left with just this 14-year-old somehow gets out, is taken from, we don't really even have that information at this point in time, right? His home, and then ends up in a river dead. Yeah. So also I found this interesting. It is estimated that 15 to 20% of deaths around the country occur in a manner that's undetermined. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
I don't like that.
I don't either.
So,
but it's because
we're throwing in here.
In so many autopsy reports to determine the cause of death, you need additional information outside of just injury.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of silly, and we don't give a ton of credence to shows like Bones and things like that, which I love, by the way, one of my favorite shows ever.
Absolutely.
It has to do almost always with the investigation surrounding the actual findings.
Right.
So it doesn't surprise me that there's that large of a percentage, because that's why we do what we do. There's so many unanswered questions.
Yes, most definitely. And now no one in the family could give information to say how he, why he would have ended up out.
He wouldn't have.
No. But because of the undetermined drowning on his autopsy, the police didn't look for a perpetrator. They did not treat this as a homicide investigation.
And there's no additional information for them to have other than what we've already been told.
Right.
It gives me the bad feels. You know why? Because we have evidence of a cut screen and footprints, muddy, leading from the window to the door to get out, which was previously locked. Yeah,
Exactly.
That to me is enough evidence.
Yeah, that's where I was at too. Is this lazy police work or just limited given it's 1994? Okay.
To venture a guess, perhaps it's one of those situations where, like, we know law enforcement officers, they know that it's hinky. They know that there's probably something or someone out there who assisted this child in leaving the house, but absent any additional information, what else can you do with it at this point?
Yeah, you can't magically make information appear.
Yeah, so feel free to be judgmental and not like how the police did the investigation, but just so you know, from my perspective right now, you're not telling me anything that makes me super upset with them.
No, I
don't like it.
No, right. It's just the circumstances in general suck.
Agreed.
But this happens a lot. And, like you were pointing out, we're often to just throw shade at the police. It's, it might not necessarily be that. And I don't think in this case, that's where we're at. I don't think it's lazy police work. No. I think it's just
things we don't know yet though. Like the investigator part of my brain is like, so what size shoes were they? Were they made from shoe print with something distinguishable like a Doc Marten or some tennis shoe that's specific? I mean, did they take an imprint? Did they take the pictures? We'll leave all that for whenever.
All that stuff, 1994, man, I don't know that they necessarily did. This is also a very low crime area.
Yeah. So you have, and what that means is you have small police agencies that probably only have maybe one evidence tech or
limited
a scene
resources.
Person. Yeah, they come in, they take pictures, and they don't do much.
Yep.
Foot mold impressions and things could have been taken outside if there were footprints outside of the window.
And
but
there was no evidence of that. It was only on the inside.
That was tracked.
Yep.
God, that's strange.
And it might not have even been full footprints either. It's just they could tell that they
dirt was tracked through.
Yep.
That makes sense.
If you have a house that is pretty clean, and then you can see like, okay, there's not, like my floors, for example, there's not dirt on my floors. So I can tell immediately when one of my 4 children or my possible husband
has left the dogs out.
Yeah, has done something and has left some sort of indication of a footprint, but I might not necessarily be able to make out the actual print of who.
I know when my dogs have recently come inside because they bring leaves with them because the leaves come up by my door and all of a sudden my tile floor has leaves all over it.
Right.
I'm also going to throw out there just because, I like all that evidence stuff and I'm sure it probably wasn't taken in 1994, but man, I would have been interested to know if there was any weird DNA found on the bed, on the sheets, any place where there would have been contact with that kid laying in bed.
Yep.
Transfer.
I don't think so based on what we'll hear later.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I'm going to take you to July 29th, 1995. So we are almost a year and a full month later.
Yep.
When 13-year-old Thad Phillips and his sister had fallen asleep on the couch in their home in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Same town.
At 4 a.m., his father had noticed that Thad, I might do that a lot. For some reason,
Tad and Thad.
I leave out the H when I read this. So I apologize in advance if I say Tad again.
If she says Tad again, we all know she means Thad.
Right. We got to hook me up to some sort of electrical device. And when I say something wrong, just zap me. That'll make people
they make all
happier.
Kinds of devices that I could press buttons for with you sitting across the table from me. Boy, that'd make the podcast interesting.
It sure would. Our first live show. I say we do it.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'm in.
So at 4 o'clock, Thad's father notices he's no longer on the couch and he's not anywhere else in the house. Now, his sister still was.
Oh.
But Thad wasn't.
Little sister.
Yeah. So like in Chris Steiner's case, the police and parents are stumped. There's no signs that anything nefarious had taken place. There's no sign of struggle. His parents insisted, just like Chris's, that their child would not leave without informing them in some sort of way, whether it's even leaving a note or something like that. Thad is not that type of kid. He is 13 years old. Yeah. So 43 hours after he was taken from his home, he finds himself in a closet, breaking down the closet door, throwing his very badly broken body down a flight of stairs to find a phone to call 911.
Wow. So Thad wakes up in a closet in an unknown location. He's in pain. His body is broken or mangled, as you've indicated, and he literally throws himself down, which means he couldn't walk.
Can't walk. He cannot walk.
So he just kind of rolled himself down the steps.
Yes, he knows the only way that he can get down those stairs to that phone it's 1995. It's attached to a wall.
Yep, they used to be.
Yep. He has to literally hurl himself down the stairs with his broken body. Him. He tells the 911 operator that he was being held captive after being tortured by an older boy who had taken him from his home. He does not know where he is. He does not know who the boy is, where he's, like I said, where he's being held. But the police were able to trace his phone call to dispatch police and emergency services to his location. So this is how he ends up being the survivor, because he was brave enough to fight for his own survival. He is found in a very dingy, dirty house. And the police discover upon some investigation that they believe his abductor to be 17-year-old Joe Clark.
Okay.
And he absolutely
So they knew Joe Clark was living at this address?
Joe Clark's parents
were living
at this address. Joe it was as well, but based on the description of what Thad could give them.
An older kid.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It eliminates the parents. Plus, the parents are eliminated because they're not home. We're going to talk a little bit about Joe Clark's upbringing.
Okay.
So Thad tells the police that in the beginning, Joe was actually pretty friendly and had talked to him about a supposed party that was going to be happening at his brother's house, Joe's brother's house. All right?
Is this prior to the abduction or is this after the abduction?
This is after the abduction.
I want to know how he came to be abducted off his couch.
Well, literally, I'll tell you that right now. He walked in, it's 4:00 in the morning or so, or 3:30 something. It was just before his dad woke up and realized he wasn't. I'm assuming that the ruckus from him coming into the home, taking Thad off the couch, probably roused his dad from his sleep. And that's how he discovered. I think they just missed each other by minutes. What he describes is that he thought he was dreaming because this 17-year-old boy, Joe Clark, goes into his home, picks him up off the couch, and carries him out of his home.
He literally he picks him up?
Yes. And so he like roused a little bit, but he thought that it was one of his
happening.
Well, he thought it was one of his parents carrying him to his bed. He's a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
He then just fell back asleep. He wasn't being jostled. He wasn't being handled, aggressively.
I'm sad because this is what makes me. This is what happened to the first boy.
Right. That's
why there's no signs of a struggle and no blood.
Because he just picked him up and carried him out.
Picture a fireman's carry. At least got him over a shoulder or something.
Right. And Joe, how Thad described it is
baby
carrying, literally like from one hand underneath his knees and one underneath his back and just, like just carried him like a parent would carry a boy to bed.
Did he carry him out to a car that was waiting?
It actually didn't. I didn't make note of that. I was assuming that he carried him to a vehicle, but I can't just assume. I don't know if he carried him all the way. This is a small town,
right?
So that information I am not sure. But when he did rouse from his sleep and realize that he is in, this dirty, home or whatnot, Joe was pretty nice to him at first.
Okay.
He has definitely two sides because he wasn't. And so at first, Thad didn't even realize that he was like in trouble. He started talking to him about this party. He started telling him friends that were going to be at this party. Now, the thing is, the friends that he mentioned, Thad knew.
Oh my God. So did he know this? What'd you say his name was? Joe?
Joe. So Joe does not know Thad, and Thad doesn't know Joe.
But they have some mutual acquaintances.
They do. And so Thad recognized the names of these kids that he was listing off as going to be at the party. It kind of comforted him, at first, like calmed him down.
This is bizarre, but maybe something normal's happening.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And he did this just to keep him calm and compliant. And when they get to his home and upstairs to his bedroom. This is when I'm going to give you a trigger alert, because this is how we find out exactly how Thad ended up in the condition that he did. He throws Thad on the bed and immediately just grabs his ankle and twists it until it cracks.
Ugh.
He would then beat him in a fit of rage after Thad attempted to flee. I mean, at this point in time, now the kid is shocked. Like, we were talking about going to a party and meeting up with friends that, we both know. And now you are literally throwing me on the bed and breaking my ankle. But this would happen over the next 43 hours, where Joe would go from being really nice to then doing something to crack one of his bones. And that is what his torture was. He broke every single bone that he possibly could. It would be for hours at a time. What he would do was use a towel to muffle his screams. Anytime that Thad kind of described it of like, once he broke something, he would then calm down and try to almost like nurture him, like it's going to be okay, and then if he heard a noise or if something was said that triggered him, he'd be right back at it, just breaking another one of his bones. He described to the police how Joe would force his legs into braces and make him walk around on his already broken limbs.
Wow.
I don't know why.
And he had these braces there.
He did. Well, and the thing is
how did he break the big bones?
Well,
I mean, I'm thinking Kathy Bates Misery style over here. Is he using implements?
This is how he snapped his thigh bone, as it was described.
Oh, good God.
Quote, Joe Clark had snapped Thad's thigh bone by forcing the leg forwards and leaning on it until it gave way. He also jumped up and down on Thad's chest and attempted to suffocate him, end quote. I am so this is
dumbstruck.
Slow torture.
Yeah.
He did it with his body weight.
Any of those larger broken bones could have resulted in his death.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're breaking that femur, you're dealing with some major arteries and blood flow there that could have killed him right away or within minutes or hours.
Yep. And then what's bizarre, Megan, is after he did this, he would then, like I said, tend to his injuries. He made bandages, makeshift casts for him. Then he would carry him downstairs and watch TV with him and talk to him.
This is a psychopath. This is a kid who is this Joe who has been incredibly traumatized and horribly physically abused. In my opinion, that has to have been his background. And then mom or somebody has nurtured him after somebody has beat on him either sexually or physically.
I would think so. What we know is that he had a very neglectful childhood.
Okay.
Mom wasn't there a lot. The other thing that Thad described to police is that he often would masturbate in front of him. He didn't sexually abuse Thad, like on his body. I mean, masturbating in front of him is a form of sexual abuse. Absolutely.
Like after he broke bones?
After he broke bones.
So this was sexually gratifying to him.
It is. There is a sexual deviation that is going on here that is added into the mix.
Okay.
So I would even venture to say that it's very possible that Joe was sexually abused as a child.
Oh, yeah.
On top of physical abuse. And then, like you said, the pseudo nurturing, just fake nurturing. We don't have the information about if it was mom or not, because when Joe does get caught and gets tried as an adult, mom's not on trial.
Right.
Just Joe is.
But he's a sadist. He gets off on the hurting of others.
Absolutely. The violence and the pain. And I'm going to talk a little bit towards the end because, the psychology in me had to bring up like the information about this because this is extremely rare. It's exceedingly rare, as a matter of fact. So to have this type of sexual deviation. So Thad told the police that he did ask Joe, like, why are you doing this? And he said he did it because he liked the sound of bones breaking and he liked how it felt. How
it feels to break them and how it sounds he does it.
Yeah. That is the long and the short of it for him. I'm doing this because I enjoy the sound of bones breaking and the way it feels.
How did he target this particular victim?
We will get to that.
All right.
Yep. Joe also bragged to Thad that he's done this before. Twice, in fact, before.
Ooh. So we know of one victim.
We do, because Thad remembered the name of Chris, but he could not recall the second name. And I'm sorry to tell you, whoever that victim is, it's never come forward.
So there was another missing child someplace.
Someplace that they did not connect.
Probably in that same Wisconsin area.
Or I would venture to say, is it another survivor that's just not come forward? That wasn't this mangled, obviously, right? Maybe the first one, just one or two bones broken. I don't know.
Was this house in the same town, like in the same area as both of his victims' homes? The victims we're aware of?
Yes. So we don't even know if it was in another area, something like that. But nothing ever comes of the fact that he bragged to to Thad, that there were two victims, one named Chris, and Thad could not remember. And bless his heart that Thad could remember Chris. Think of the excruciating pain that he is in.
I can't imagine. He was in a state of shock for how many hours was missing? 43?
Yeah. And the torture began immediately. I mean, as he got him to his house and he's placating him with these, we're going to go to this party thing. Once he got him in his room, he threw him down on the bed and started breaking bones.
Right.
So
makes it harder for them to run away too.
Right. And so 43 hours and we're vacillating back and forth between this breaking a new bone in my body and being really tender and kind to me. And he's just chatting me up. I can't even believe this boy remembered the name Chris.
So he ends up shoved in a closet.
He does, because Thad has his girlfriend over during these 2 days.
And he's just supposed to be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at some point when he breaks out of the closet, which is when he throws himself down the stairs, has Joe left? Like he was under the impression that Joe left the house?
Joe and his girlfriend did leave the house because he was that cocksure that he had mangled Thad enough that he couldn't escape even if he wanted to.
Okay.
So he gets him, to that point of thinking that he has broke everything that he can in this boy's body.
Including his will.
Right. Put him in the closet. And then him and his girlfriend do go to a party.
Excellent.
And that is when Thad knocks down the closet door, gets himself. And you guys, I will describe his injuries in a bit, but it is extensive, and it's a miracle that he could get himself out of that closet.
Sadist pride will get you every time, though.
Yeah, yeah.
He thought he was safe to leave his victim there.
Sure did.
Good for you, Thad.
This is the thing. Joe knew Thad, but Thad didn't know Joe, because it was said. And I'm going to tell you that I went deep diving down the Reddit internet hole.
Oh, God. Sometimes it's so entertaining.
Sometimes it's very worth it, because you get people in there who know someone or who went to school with these boys. Yeah. And I did. They put it all out there. Ooh. Okay. So apparently Thad at 13. So he's what, 8th grade for fuck's sake?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So he's 13. He was known to be kind of a bully. It's 1995. I think all 13-year-olds in 95 were bullies.
Okay. So our victims, people thought he was a bit of a bully in 8th grade?
Only Joe. Joe thought.
But Joe is 17.
Joe is 17.
So he thought a 13-year-old was a bully?
And it turns out that Joe has a whole list of people, Megan, that he thought was a bully. And he saw himself as doing some sort of vigilante justice to the world.
Good Lord.
He had a list of people that he was going to protect, and people that were bullies that needed to be taken out.
He had a kill list.
He did. In
1994.
And this Reddit,
1995,
this
too.
Reddit thread, a girl, and I will not use names, of course, but a girl had commented that she knows about the list because her brother was on the list as being protected, so the police contacted them.
Did you people know you were under the Bone Breakers protection?
Yeah. So that's how that information kind of gets out there. And she wrote that, Thad, like in his perspective, Thad was a bully. Again, he's 13. Like,
why do I feel like I'm watching some 90s male version of the movie Heathers?
Well, what's interesting to me is...
And where's Christian Slater?
Never where you want him to be.
I know. He would definitely break up the storyline here a little bit to give me some
Christian,
comfort.
Why are you never where you're supposed to be?
I know. You're in my head.
You're not in my living room. I just don't get it.
He's not in my closet, I promise.
Right.
This poor kid.
Yes.
But other people did not think Thad was a bully. Joe did.
Joe did. This is what I'm telling you. Yes. From what we know in Joe's perspective, he thought Thad was a bully, and this list of other people that were on it as well. And so he felt like he was doing, some sort of justice, except Megan, that's what he says. But you add in the sexual
I was just going to say.
And that's where I'm like, no, boy.
I think teaching somebody a lesson by punching them on the playground is a little bit different than beating them, kidnapping them, beating them, and then jerking off in front of them after you hurt them.
After you've tortured them.
It just goes a step too far, Joe.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say.
Couple steps.
So I think that whole thing was just some sort of kind of defense that he tried to come up with, but I'm not buying it.
Oh, I don't even know that that's a defense. I think he may have convinced his own brain that this is what he was doing. He was a superhero. Not all heroes wear capes, Charnell.
Oh, they don't?
Nope.
Oh.
He had a little Superman complex there.
Apparently some just wear jeans and a t-shirt.
They do, and they're 17 and they lock small children in closets.
Right. And so the fact that, like you had said earlier, the fact that he was so cocky and thought that he had defeated this 13-year-old boy so much to the point where he couldn't escape. That's his downfall.
He was going to kill him.
He was, absolutely. There is no doubt about it.
I mean, that's most likely what happened to what was our first victim's name again? I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay.
It's been a long day at work.
Yeah. So for Chris, he ends up dead in a river, and he was missing for 5 days.
Well, and I'll tell you, he knew Chris, and Chris knew him.
So they actually knew each other, each other.
Through Chris's older brother.
And Chris was 14.
Chris was 14.
And this was a year prior, so Joe would have been 16.
Mm-hmm. And he had an older brother, and that older brother, I get to it in a little while.
Okay.
I'm skipping ahead in my notes here, but that older brother does feel a lot of
remorse, guilt.
Yes, survivor's guilt, and it's not his fault.
No.
But Chris was specifically targeted. Now, whether that was because he was on the list as being a bully, I'm not sure. I actually think he was targeted simply because he knew Chris's older brother, and he knew what bedroom to get him out of, and he knew the family's routine. That's why I think Chris personally.
And Chris's older brother wasn't there, and is probably around the same age. He would have.
Because he is the same age. He's
16, or was 16 in 1994.
Yes, he was the same age.
So was I.
More than likely, I was not.
I know.
4th grade.
I know you're not.
But I think that he probably saw Chris's older brother at a party, knew exactly where he was going to be, and those two boys, if they shared a room, knew he would be alone, and saw his opportunity and took it that night.
Okay.
Yep. Here Joe Clark is partying with his girlfriend, and they rush Thad to the hospital. Now, I do want to give you some descriptions this is the words from the police. They would see injuries like this in a really, really bad car crash.
Yes.
Typically. Thad's legs were broken in 4 places.
Ugh.
His feet, this is so bad. His feet were twisted so bad that the skin was reminiscent of rubber.
Ugh.
His toe.
So gross.
It's so bad. His toes were pointing the wrong way. When he entered the hospital, he had serious life-threatening internal bleeding.
I knew this was going to happen from those, major bones.
The doctors estimated that he was hours away from dying.
Okay.
When they got him to the police station, or not the police station, the hospital. Sorry.
So Joe was gonna let him die from all the broken injuries. He wasn't gonna do anything else. He was just gonna let him succumb to his injuries. Do we think?
That's an excellent question, and something that I pondered as well. I do think he was just gonna torture him until he couldn't anymore, or until he got bored and killed him himself.
Well, and if he was trying to kill him when he was jumping up and down on his rib cage,
he was trying to suffocate him
and breaking the ribs, and there's potential perforation of lungs,
right.
Your cardiac muscles.
And he's just listening to everything crack, and I'm sure just assuming he can't possibly live much longer.
Okay.
So, time to go out partying with a girlfriend. Yeah. Well, I'll leave him in my closet to die.
All right.
Ugh. About 4 hours after they got Thad to the hospital, the police just had to jump from one teen party to the next, and bam, they find Joe Clark. His girlfriend was questioned. She had no idea that this child was upstairs in a closet.
Teenage girl.
Yeah. No, she said she had been over there several times in the last 2 days.
Yeah, because his parents weren't there.
Exactly. we're going to get a little bit more into the parents. Okay. So yes, I just wanted to throw that out there that the girlfriend did not have anything to do with it. She was there, but she did not know anything was going on because he was upstairs with a towel in his mouth to stifle any of his cries in a closet. Now, the police then conduct a search of the very dirty, nasty home that Joe Clark was living in, and they found a journal. This is where we get the information about the macabre list of local boys that were described as his hit list and his protective list. Okay. The list contained 29 names, which had been sectioned off under 3 headings. Heading number 1 was can wait. So like, we can wait to take these.
I'm so sorry for laughing.
Right? Like, it's just it's so ridiculous. Can wait. Then there's a heading of get to now. And then, Megan, there is a heading of the leg thing.
The leg thing?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So
what list was Chris on?
You know what?
Or was he not on the list?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know that information. There's not a crap ton of information. This hasn't been covered.
Was Thad on it?
Thad was under the leg thing. Joe admitted that he did take Thad out of his home, but that his intentions were to just hang out. He said that he had no recollection of what had happened or how Thad sustained his injuries because he must have, quote, kind of blacked out.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. How many times have we...
People just wander around blacking out all the time.
During his
girlfriend was there for most of the 2 days on and off, and she doesn't recall seeing him blacked out,
sure doesn't.
Passed out.
Nobody that knows Joe has ever recalled him suffering from blackouts at all. No.
Joe didn't research well enough.
No, not in 1995. The internets were just a babe. They couldn't. So he's charged with attempted first-degree intentional homicide, causing great bodily harm to a child, mayhem, causing mental harm to a child, and child enticement.
Okay.
All right.
No torture?
There was not torture
Criminal
listed.
mayhem torture may fall under criminal mayhem in Wisconsin.
Actually, I apologize because it's mayhem with the intent to disable or disfigure.
It's torture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, I understand that's mayhem's an old common law.
Right.
And they're utilizing that in Wisconsin.
And like how I say right, like I knew that. I didn't know that. You just educated me.
You're welcome.
But I am agreeing with you.
I knew what you mean by right. I do the same thing.
Sounds good.
Right has somehow become a comma or a punctuation mark for me as people are talking. I'm like, right?
Yeah.
It's from my kids, I think, but I don't say right, bruh.
No,
I'm not bruhing
No,
you.
I'm not. Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
I get that enough. Joe pleads no contest and not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, of course. I mean, I think we kind of saw that coming.
I'm not saying you don't have some defects there, buddy,
Most
but
definitely.
does it rise to this level?
And it doesn't excuse you. The defense argued that his biological mother, now Joe, spoiler alert, that's not what I meant.
Plot twist.
Joe was adopted.
Oh.
So the defense was like, listen, his biological mother was a heavy drug user throughout her pregnancy with him, and Joe himself had suffered a real bad head injury in a bike crash the year before.
When he killed the first child?
Well, that's just it. He had already taken victims before his head injury, suffering from a bike crash. But also the fact that, the biological mother thing. No.
Well, the only thing that bike crash and the head injury goes to show, giving him the benefit of the doubt, is that he became less smart in covering up his crimes because he left the child in the closet.
True.
Thankfully for you, Thad.
His adopted mother did get on the stand and tried to make an alibi for him, saying that she was home that whole time.
No, ma'am.
There is some suspicion that the reason that she did that is because she didn't want it to be looked into the fact that he was always alone. She was never around.
She was neglectful.
Yes. So she was trying to say, oh, no, I was home. I saw him. I didn't hear anything. He never brought a boy home, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
but it doesn't matter because the prosecution ate her up on the stand and it all fell apart.
God, I remember those days. They made me so happy when I was in that spot.
That's like the equivalent of a lawyer orgasm right there.
It kind of is. And one, she's perjured herself.
Yes.
So, which is a crime in and of itself.
Right.
Not that we always charge people with that, but she just discredited herself so much in front of the jury, which again was kind of my favorite thing to do as a prosecutor with people who were blatantly lying.
And yes, and her intentions for blatantly lying, you know, maybe she could argue that it came out of the love for her son of trying to protect him.
I actually think it could have, but I think it was more protecting herself from being shown to be neglectful.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation that it was actually more about the fact that she didn't want to be cast, you know, into the investigation of why was he home alone for 43 hours? You never were there.
You know, and considering a 17-year-old, you might leave home alone for a weekend with somebody to check on. I might do that, by the way.
No, sure.
But the home condition would show
the problem.
That it's maybe longer than that, or she's not staying there at all. Is she staying with friends and boyfriends and leaving this kid to fend for himself?
Correct. It was the state of the home coupled with the rest of the investigation that they're like, no, you were not coming and going. No, where's this kid getting his food? Where's it? You know, all that stuff. On November 7th, 1997, when Joe was just 20 years old, he was sentenced to either 100 years or a life sentence. It doesn't matter. I saw it both ways.
Whichever comes first. Yes. Whichever comes first. I think that's kind of interesting. I got to look that up in Wisco law because there's part of me that really loves 100 years or a life sentence, whichever comes first.
Yeah. So 100 years.
Or whichever comes last. Because that way, if he turns 100, he can't. So say he lives to 120.
Have to be 120.
Hey, people have lived. What's the documentation for the oldest man or person alive? Isn't it like 119, 120 something?
I thought it was 121.
It might be. So God, that would have given him a whole year to cause problems.
Yeah. With his cane.
Was that thunder?
I think so.
We have thunder ice now here in Michigan.
That was bizarre.
It is. It's raining and it's going to start to freeze.
And it's icing.
It's thunder ice, yeah.
Okay. Thunder ice. We need a cool ass song for that.
Oh, I will come up with one.
I have buttons here I could push that play songs, but I don't know which is which, and I just don't know. I'm like,
we'll save that for the Patreons.
Right. It could get real weird up in here. So I will tell you that Thad was awarded like $21 million in damages. I mean, I doubt that he ever saw that money.
I would think not.
Thankfully.
Although you could sue the parent because he was at 17, a minor for purposes of a lawsuit civilly, but charged as an adult criminally.
Interesting. So, really. I wondered how that, I couldn't find more information on it. I just assumed he probably didn't get the money.
I'm just going to go lawyer on you, but do you know what I would have done as an attorney suing civilly?
Tell me.
I would have sued the homeowners, the insurance, and collected from the homeowners insurance. Most people carry a policy, $500,000, $1 million, and try to collect against the homeowners.
Do you think that Miss Clark had homeowners insurance?
I think if she had a mortgage that she was paying, she probably did, because
and I don't have that information if she was renting.
Right, because that's a requirement. If she was renting, then here's the bad part. And again, you're welcome as a lawyer. The owners potentially could have been sued even though they were renting it. Yikes. I know. We're a terrible breed.
You really are. You really dirty dogs.
A wolf.
Oh my God.
I know. Just throwing all that out there for collectability purposes.
No wonder why people go into law school. That is some shit right there.
That is not why I went. Obviously,
I know.
I don't
obviously
make
not
any of that money.
No. So thankfully, you might be wondering, why am I talking so weird this episode?
I don't know, but I kind of like it.
What is my fucking problem?
I like when you're weird.
Get yourself together, Charnell. All right, I'm channeling the universe here. I'm just trying to tell you that Thad walks again, people.
No, that's what you were getting to with all of this?
Yes, he didn't. I mean, obviously, he's going to have lifelong effects. Because his name's Thad, I said effects.
Right.
I meant lifelong effects, but he is able to walk again.
And so he's not wheelchair bound. No. They probably had to do extensive surgeries on him.
Yes, he was in the hospital for a very long time. Like I said, his legs were broken 4 places. His feet were facing the wrong way, and his toes were also facing the wrong way. So all of those things were broken and rubbery, as it was described. So yeah, this was bad, but he was able to recover as much as he could, and it's not. I'm sure that it's affecting his life. I found some information about it that I will share later, because now I want to get to the murder of Chris Steiner's. They did reopen his case.
Thank you.
After he, the sentencing because of Thad, Chris Steiner's case was reopened, and his body was exhumed, and a post-mortem autopsy was done and revealed severe injuries to his legs and ankles that were identical to Thad's.
It bothers me that they didn't find broken bones before with a complete autopsy. Somebody said this is a drowning and saw the decomp and closed it too quickly.
Amen, sister. It's like you were reading my notes, even though you can't see my computer.
We don't need to, because we've done this long enough. Because you just said there should be a cause of death in front of the actual drowning, yeah. And they didn't try to find it because it was there.
It absolutely was there, because you know that leg thing where he does the whole thing where he like slowly breaks the leg with his body.
He has him praying mantis style, bent over, and then breaks his leg.
That's what he did to Chris. Yes.
Okay.
So his leg injuries were identical to Thad's.
So he has the broken bones and he did drown. To me, this, honestly, I feel in my heart of hearts that he probably broke his bones so extensively that he died probably at the house and then he dumped him.
I'm thinking so.
Which means he wouldn't have inhaled water real quick.
No, if they were in his lungs, it was from
Or let me just make it even worse, and I'm sorry to do this, but he could have been near death and he dumped him and then he sucked in the water and because he couldn't swim.
Yeah, right. Very possible.
And drowned immediately.
Or just they mistook the water in his lungs that ended up there from decomp and whatnot.
Yeah, I still
as
feel
being, whatever. It's obvious that the autopsy wasn't complete, right?
I think we've established that.
I think so too, that we had to go back, exhume his body and then find broken bones.
So did they charge Joe?
He did have that added on with it. He got first-degree homicide, mayhem again, and causing great bodily harm to a child. He pled not guilty, and he still maintains his innocence today, but it doesn't matter because they went ahead and found him guilty of the first-degree homicide, mayhem, and causing great bodily harm to a child, and they added an additional 60 years to his life sentence.
So he had a trial. He was found guilty.
Yes. Yep. They did do that for him. I did find a lot of Reddit comments, as I mentioned earlier, that Chris's brother, his name was Jim.
Okay.
That he was friends with
Joe,
and that he really struggles with his survivor's guilt. And I highly doubt he's listening to this, but if he is, I really hope that he worked through that and that he's living a really happy life somewhere because this was not your fault.
And if not, get therapy, buddy, because you didn't do anything to make that psychopath do this. There was something wrong with him.
Yep.
If you think about how many times you used to bitch as to your friends, like I have a sister who's 17 months younger than me. You're the baby, so can you only imagine what your much older sibling said about how annoying you were, right?
Oh gosh, and half the time they said it to my face. Just last night I was sitting at a basketball game with him and my brother was picking on me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, to say, oh my God, my sister, she's so annoying and she did this and she did that. And then to have somebody in their sick mind think, oh, I'll take care of this for my friend.
Yep.
What a bully that little girl is.
Yep.
No, you didn't do anything wrong, sweetie. That is just, he was a sick kid.
Yes, absolutely.
And not one that I find that could potentially be rehabilitatable. There are those cases, and we've indicated them before. People will commit a murder in the heat of the moment or the heat of passion. These are not those type of cases. I'm sorry.
No, not when you couple in the sexual deviation. This is a violent sexual offender. Also, I will add in that they gave him no possibility of parole. So Joe Clark's not getting out.
So this time, instead of 100 years or life, it was
it is an
60
additional
years.
60 years to life, no possibility of parole.
Did they say if that was concurrent? So was it running at the same time?
It didn't say. I know. I was looking for that. It did not say.
Or consecutive.
But either way, I don't think that he's
going
to be
So he's currently incarcerated.
Yes, he is incarcerated. In 1998, he did make an attempt to appeal his conviction, citing lack of evidence in Chris's case, but the appeal was squashed, and he's out of appeals, and
he is my age. He's 45 years old, someplace sitting in prison in Wisconsin.
Yes,
at the Wisconsin Department of Corrections.
Yep. Now I want to tell you a little bit
Wonder if they
more.
Listen to podcasts there.
I do. Well, they do let them have access to internet, and they can play them through the internet. And you know what? I bet a lot of like those really narcissistic psychopaths that we cover, I bet they do listen to all the coverage on them. They love to
you want to hear about
yourself,
right?
Yeah. And that's usually why we make up creative
get
names
off
for
on
them.
it, right? Well, I'm sure he likes to be called the bone breaker, but mostly I think you're a sad, sad human being, and you're where you belong, sweetie.
Yep, for sure. I agree. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Reddit things. I mean, take it for what it is.
You really dove.
I did.
You should see those smirk on her face.
There wasn't a ton of information about this that I, really felt like that would beef up our episode. I love to get all the information that I can.
Yes.
So I read, though, that Thad has some serious struggles. It kind of broke my heart to read this. And this is what bothered me about the Reddit threads. There were people that were throwing shade at Thad. One of them literally said that he's a deadbeat dad now and that he tells his story to gain sympathy, and really, really bothered me because...
Oh, we're victim shaming.
Yeah. And why are you... This is uncalled for, because perhaps telling his story isn't to gain sympathy, but it's a part of his own healing and to remind people of who he is, that this happened to him and who Chris was. And, and what happened to Chris and that he survived it. It had said something about him getting into meth now.
Gee, I wonder why.
Thank you, Megan.
I'm just speaking out of training and experience. Can I insert my public opinion here?
I knew
we do
you
not
would.
get political, you guys. We have an opioid epidemic in the United States right now where people are legitimately suing pharmaceutical companies because medical professionals overprescribed opiates for people in pain. Now, guess who might be a person who had experienced a significant amount of pain?
Wow, I don't know, maybe Thad.
Who's had every bone in his body broken. Well, once you stop prescribing the legal opiates, you have created an addict who can no longer get the thing that they need to make them feel better.
Yep.
And then they move on to street narcotics,
Exactly.
heroin, methamphetamine, and any other type of street pills. Yep. So you do have a direct result from something that was legitimate to start. The fact that sometimes victims turn out to be not so great parents or even criminals themselves, you guys. Why do you think we have so many of these murderers on here who've been sexually abused or physically abused? It doesn't take anything away from the fact that he's a victim and he has a legitimate story now.
Correct. Exactly. That is why I wouldn't ordinarily, put in some shitty comment about our victim that somebody said. But I felt like it was super important that we draw attention to this, that if this is the narrative that people are out there saying about him, and it might be true. It absolutely might be. But this is why. And I knew that you would be able to talk intelligently about it. You've actually skipped through, I can skip through a lot of my notes now because that's exactly what I had written.
I run 2 treatment courts and you have served on treatment courts as well. Yep. And we are not condoning or advocating for continued substance use, but we know that there's a reason why.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, y'all.
And it's not because you're a piece of shit human being.
Well, whether anybody wants to believe it or not, because I still know and I'm friends with a lot of old school people who are like, you can make these choices. Your brain changes when you become an addict, and it is a DSM-5 diagnosis for substance use. All of you medical professionals out there, I hope are cheering right now going, yes, a lawyer that understands this.
Well, something very easy, okay? Right now, I guarantee a majority of you guys are trained just like I am, that when I wake up, what do? We look at our phone, right?
Yes.
We have trained our brain and body. I teach about this stuff very extensively, actually, so I'm going to try to wrap it up quickly here. But our brain is like that's like a highway, okay? We have a little highway path in our brain of, I wake up, I'm going to look at my phone. Some people might get on Facebook. They might just lay there and wake up for a bit being on their phone, right?
I go for the coffee pot.
Yes,
I trained
other
myself.
people, exactly. It depends. We all have our morning routine. Those are pathways in our brain. They're highways. They're easy to navigate. We don't even have to think about them. Our body does them, right? That's how addiction works. So when you're trying to get away from an addiction, I challenge you all, tomorrow morning, wake up and try to do something entirely different. I mean entirely different from what you usually do. See how your morning goes. See how your body feels. If you don't do the things you typically do something else. It's going to suck because you're retraining. You don't have those highways in your brain for something else.
To instead trigger your stress response and release cortisol.
Exactly. So I'm telling you, it's not a choice. It's not as easy when your brain is completely wired the way that it is. You literally have to build new roads. And how we build new roads is first, if you picture just a grassy knoll, you first walk that grassy knoll back and forth until it is a little dirt path. Then it's a big lane. Then maybe it's a whole ass dirt road. And then it becomes a paved road before it then becomes a highway. And that is a long process to get there.
Charnell just gave you a very brief overview of cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma focused, and how you change people's brains. But what I love, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on this.
Sure.
What I love though, is that we are victim centric, and we know that victims aren't always, shining stars. There are some people publicly who are making attempts to either discredit him or say that he's not a great guy. Thank you for addressing potential reasons why, if they are true, and if they are not, at least allowing his story to be told.
Right.
That's how it should be.
Well, not all survivor stories that we cover are butterflies and rainbows at the end, because that's not how life works. You don't get an automatic path to wellness and happiness just because you survived. There are typically years of soul work, trauma healing that have to take place for someone to recover from such an assault like this man went through at a pivotal developmental moment in his life. He was 13 years old. We can't negate that either.
No.
I mean, my gosh.
The start of puberty for most boys.
Yep, exactly. With this type of trauma, no. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Hopefully you guys learned something from that. But now I'm going to add a little bit of psychology to the case, a little bit more, I guess. So since this is a sexual fetish of Joe that's not typical, it's actually categorized as a paraphilia, which is sexual interest that's atypical. And in his case, Megan, you might have to, I struggle. It's auralism, Auralism. I always struggle with that word.
Yeah.
Because auditory, right? From our ears, that's the derivative of the word. Auralism, which involves being turned on by sound. And in his case, it also presents with pain and torture, which is extremely uncommon.
So just the sound thing, the auralism itself, isn't necessarily a pedophilic.
No,
it's a sexual deviation, but it's not one that is pedophilic.
No.
It's that coupled with the torture and that makes it the sexual deviation. So again, for some of you freaks out there, our fans that we love, you all have some weird stuff that you might like that doesn't make you a pedophile. It doesn't make you pedophilic in any way.
And it doesn't, and it's not even a paraphilia where what you're doing is completely atypical, right?
There's a combination there.
So I just wanted to throw that, if anybody else was curious about like, wow, what would make somebody, he presents with two uncommon sort of things that are coupled together, and it's very, very atypical.
Yeah.
So
the psychology behind all that is Joe is real interesting
deep.
to me.
And I wasn't going to give him that much airtime and get down and dirty.
But if you're interested, I bet we could look it up.
Yeah. It is out there, certainly, I'm sure. Honestly, though, I could not find information even in the DSM about a specific bone breaking.
Okay.
It just
I think it would
sound.
Okay. And then probably torture.
Of course, pain and torture.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It falls under that.
But yeah, I found that really interesting. Okay, are you ready for a brain bath?
Yeah, I am. I am ready for a brain bath.
In this, I will insert, we're going to do a 2-part brain bath. The first one is going to be the article that was shared to us by Kangaroo Sack Jason in our Patreon group that I just found very endearing.
My God, I love it. I have so many comments.
The other one, we will play for you guys at the end of this episode what happened in the middle of this episode, because my cell phone, as you know, we do interviews. So my cell phone is connected to our podcasting equipment, and my 17-year-old called in.
It's the best thing ever.
And interrupted us while we were recording, and we thought that you just might want to know some of the things that we deal with while we're trying to live our real lives and do a podcast.
Yes, so absolutely. And so you can get an idea of what we're talking about with 17-year-olds and adolescent brains that we were just discussing.
Yep, exactly. It fits so perfectly.
A normal teenage adolescent brain.
Mm-hmm. Here's a synchronicity for you in the world, right? Because we were talking about a 17-year-old, now we have one. And just to set the scene, today we are under an ice storm warning. It is extremely icy out, and it's so bad. So he was instructed to grab his brother and get his ass home. And so that's what this phone call is about. But anyway.
Bathe me first.
I will bathe you.
Even though you're not bathing me because it is so funny.
You have it pulled up on your phone. Can I just look at your, because instead of pulling it up on mine here.
I have a Samsung, so good luck.
Is it an article?
No. You have to explain what you're looking at.
Oh.
It wasn't an article.
Okay. So in our Patreon group, as you guys know, somehow we became the Penis Podcast. That was on accident.
It's because of our fans. It is our Patreons. Right. It's not because of us.
We blame you guys.
Right.
But the men in our Patreon group handle it so well.
They do.
And that was
with such grace.
I just realized my choice of words. They handle it so well.
I'm dying right now.
They really do. Join in.
I've never seen anybody handle it so gracefully as you, Kangaroo Sack Jason and new Chris.
New Chris. I know. They've really embraced what it is to be a crime curious Patreon full of mostly women who joke around about dicks a lot. So he posts this picture. And
not to be punny right now, but if you don't touch it, it'll go away.
I know.
Okay, so I'm talking about my phone.
Right.
Okay.
I'm stroking it. Don't worry.
Good.
So he posted, everything is dicks in here, so why not dick bullets? I hear they're good for penetration. Sorry, I'm a child. And sure as shit, there is actual bullets that are shaped like dicks. The tip of them is not, they're
circumcised.
I was just going to say there is no denying what religion they are. Okay. And they're very poignantly circumcised little dick bullets. And what would make someone, do you know the attention, like a mold had to have been made at some point in time? Like,
well, I know people who make their own bullets at home. They do their own with gunpowder. Somebody intentionally made this mold. But can I just add some of these comments?
Please.
And I won't call out our individual Patreons, even though I think some would love it.
Yes.
So they post these, and one of our male Patreon says, sometimes being fast is a good thing. Somebody else says, seems like a lot of work having to spit on the end of every bullet before you load it.
That one killed me. I was wrecked.
And then our own Charnell says, to be on the marketing team for these. Here at Cocked and Loaded, our dickheads never miss their mark. And another Patreon responded to you with, these peens will tear right through your opponent's spleen.
I loved her way of rhyming.
I love it.
These peens will tear through the spleen.
And I feel like, these are 9mm, a 50 piece 9mm. They're hollow points. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that on the box, someplace for marketing, it should say, sometimes size does matter.
Yes,
right.
It really should. So much for marketing, their marketing we could do for them.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I feel like perhaps we should share this in the regular Crime Curious page if it doesn't scare everybody away, because it's funny.
If we don't get sent to Facebook jail for having anatomically correct bullets.
I would like to point out that in our disclaimer, I very clearly say, if you cannot handle anatomical descriptions, and that doesn't just pertain to cases, it pertains to the brain
very
baths
good
too.
Point.
So you were all warned.
Yep.
Do you want to direct people on how to look at these?
Sure.
Social media?
Follow us on social media. We're on all of the platforms, literally. You could also just go to our website, crimecuriouspodcast.com. From there, you can email us. You can buy merch. You can join Patreon. Anything that you want. It's all available on our website.
I believe we have links to the Instagram and to the Twitter.
We do. Yep. We have all of the
both
links
mediums
there.
that I don't enjoy, but I know some of you youngins do.
No, and right now, if you message us and we don't get back like within a business day, it's because for whatever reason, sometimes our messenger gets wonky, and then I'll get all the messages at once.
We've had really bad internet problems. So for any of you within the last couple of weeks that have had issues, like literally our cell phone towers were down within the county that we live in. Yep. For over 24 hours.
Yeah.
So
people thought the world was ending.
It kind of it felt like it. I felt very much like Little House on the Prairie. Yeah.
See, my Wi-Fi still worked, so I couldn't text or call.
No, as soon as I left my house, I couldn't. Literally, I'm like, hey, let's go to dinner out of the county last night.
Oh.
So as soon as we left the county, I'm like, all of these messages.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, you guys. In the meantime, I want to remind you, as I always do, to keep it curious.
And keep listening.
And bye-bye.
At just 20 years
Jacob,
old.
2 hearts.
Your phone's right here.
Thank you. Sorry.
Hi, Jacob.
Hello, Jacob. You're on the podcast.
Welcome to Crime Curious, Jacob. Talking about right now.
Judge Megan is going to...
Oh, shoot, there's a judge there.
Yeah.
As always.
I take back everything I've said.
Uh-huh. I'm a good Christian boy.
He recanted.
I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Thank you. Yes.
And possibly your defense counsel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
why are you phoning me in the middle of the podcast?
I'm bringing little mini me, as one would say.
Okay.
And then I'm going to eat and then go to the beautiful brunette's house.
No, you're not going to drive anymore tonight.
Charnell, the roads are not bad. It is 5 o'clock.
Yes, and it's going to get bad. And also, Judge Megan already informed me that they are bad.
Sorry, sweetie. It's later that they're going to be bad, like within the next hour.
There's a tree. There's a tree falling down.
Yeah.
Oh, the ice, honey.
Ice does that to trees. They don't like it.
Just get home, and you're going. And I'm sorry, but the beautiful brunette.
I am now off the road. All right, I'm back on the road. Don't worry.
You just gave your mom all the ammo as to why you can't go out again. It looks like you and the beautiful girl are going to be FaceTiming tonight.
That's right. That's how you're going to see.
Well, 1 minute you're driving in the road looking at the scenery, the next minute you're in the scenery looking at the road. So.
Exactly. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
So, all right, we'll be home in approximately 20 minutes.
Okay. Be careful. It is icy.
Yeah, something like that.
I love you.
All right, love you too.
Bye.
Adios.
17-year-old boys.
This should be our effing brain bath.
I know.
You should play the brain bath for everybody. This is 17-year-old boys.
Yes, exactly. When we're having an ice storm. Mm-hmm.
And I love that he proves your point as he's driving. He's like, "Oh, a tree's falling."
Tree is falling.
He just ruined his plight.
Dumbass.
He's great.
Sometimes too honest for his own
I
good.
love everything. I love everything about the exchange that just happened.
Lord have mercy, child.